Welcome to the Collective Genius Podcast, the show for real estate investors who are looking to scale.
Welcome back to the Collective Genius Podcast, the podcast where real estate investors come to grow and scale your business. I am your host, Leon Barnes. Welcome back. Welcome back in to the Collective Genius Podcast. We're happy to have you. And thanks as always for all of the kind reviews and sharing this podcast as we continue to grow it, now dropping 2 per week. And if you want to go back and watch or listen to any of those episodes, you can find it at our website, thecgpodcast.com. I almost got confused there, but we cleaned it up. thecgpodcast.com. I am super excited today to introduce you to another great, longtime Collective Genius member, Mr. Jason Lewis. Welcome in, Jason. How are you?
I'm great, Leon. Couldn't be happier to be here. Couldn't be happier to be here with anybody. I just assumed be with you.
Man, I appreciate that. We'll get into, how well we know each other from this great community in time. But why don't we start out by giving you a proper introduction so everyone knows where you operate out of, what type of businesses that you have, and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. So, my real estate investor journey started in 2012. So, just got out of college, graduated with a degree in radiation therapy, realized that I hated the idea of radiation therapy, and so found what was a hard to come by in 2012. That was a real estate investor. Hit him up for a job 3 different times, got 3 no's, and on round 4, I told him, hey, I'm just going to show up tomorrow and I'm going to provide as much value as I can. And all I ask is that someday, if I'm providing value, will you just pay me what that value is? And he was like, well, that'd be pretty hard to say no to. So I guess you're in. So
stop there. Hold that for a thought. I can't let you gloss over that. So
I did that fast version.
Well, I don't want you to gloss over that because there are a lot of people that are listening to this. Obviously, there are a lot of people that listen to this that are full-time real estate investors that, have been in this business for a very long time. But there's others that listen to this that may be just starting out and like, where do I learn beyond YouTube and podcasts and things like that? Where do I learn? You're saying to me that you went to a real estate investor, by the way, in Salt Lake City, where you're based.
Yeah.
You go to this investor and you say, I don't want you to pay me. I just want to learn an internship.
Yeah. Well, I tried first for the paid internship and the job, but it didn't go my way. And one thing to know about me, I'm different than a lot of the other investors in Collective Genius. There's kind of like an avatar of a predictive index personality that a lot of people in the room are. Much more like big action taking, not scared to take risk, big personalities, things like that. I'm more risk averse. I'm more analytical, more of the thinker type. So for me, the idea of like, I'm just going to take a course and then jump in, that's just not who I was then. Now I've grown into a person that could do that, but I was not that person then. And so I figured best plan was, and obviously I was okay with some risk because I was willing to work for free for a month. But I also had faith in my ability to prove myself to that investor, but wasn't excited about like, hey, I'm just going to go pound doors until someone's interested. For me, the path that made sense was I'm just going to go find somebody to work for.
Well, it's very smart. And also obviously getting your foot in the door by saying, look, I'll work hard and you don't have to pay me for X amount of time. And if it makes sense thereafter, then you can hire me. So this person that you go to work for, were they flipping? Were they wholesaling back then? What was the model?
So he was a flipper. And small time flipper. He was doing like a home a month flipping, and he had a single room of an office building rented, and that was our office. And he and I shared the same desk, for the first 6 months. I sat on one side, he sat on the other. And a lot of what I learned was just from listening to him talk. He and I are still friends today, and we were talking just barely. Teaching wasn't necessarily his thing, but just being in the same room and listening to the way he talked and what he did and all the ins and outs and everything else, it taught me a lot of the basics. And so he and I kind of unknowingly were kind of the perfect pair. He was the big vision. I was the get it done. The visionary integrate. I started out mostly just like getting lunches and, trying to build websites and be helpful where I could. And then we scaled that to over 150 flips a year, big commercial buildings, a great big rental portfolio. We did that over 5 years. So, and along the way I did, it worked out. It worked out great. And I wore every hat besides construction. We always had construction figured out, but I wore every other hat along the way on the path up. So at that 5-year mark, that was when I decided to spread my wings, and left to go do my own thing. So now we're talking round 2 for me, and this is 2017. So that's when I started Creation Utah, my wholesale flip company, and it went great from very early on. Alex Hormozy talks about when you play a video game, you can get to the same level in the video game that you were playing when you play the second time pretty quick. So I started in 2017, and I think I joined Collective Genius within a year. At the time, there was only CG Premiere, and I think I barely squeaked in. I was the least qualified guy in the room, but I just barely made it. And my call was with you, and the flip company grew pretty quick from there. So I went from, I think the first year, I started September 2017, did a few deals, and then it was like, bam, 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 grew pretty quick from there.
So he's glossing over a lot of this because we have a lot to get to in this pod, and I did a poor job of setting it up and framing it. So I'm going to reframe it or frame it accordingly now. So I'm asking Jason these questions, these background questions, because he's got a ton of value to give, and he's going to give a ton of value on this podcast. And so I'm asking him to go through his background a little quicker, because at the end of this podcast, when you listen to this podcast today, there's going to be a resource that's available to you specifically for direct mail, to which we'll get to in 1 second. But I want to reframe this from the time that I've met Jason. So he had 5 years of experience working for someone else and learning how to scale someone else's business, which he did really well. If you listen to the...
By the way, your story is not very different.
It's almost the exact same, quite frankly. You probably did more deals, and the person that I went to work for originally did more deals than your guy did out of the gates, but it's very similar in the structure of 5 years and moving on. And that there's so thankful for those lessons, both you and I, for the foundation that it helped us build in real estate, and so grateful for those opportunities to get to the point of which we're talking now. 7 years into CG, both of us had 5 years prior working for someone else in that capacity. And eventually you start to figure some things out very systematically in this process, because I know this to be true. You were the very first person, and I want to make sure that I highlight this. I've said this before to others, but not in a podcast setting. You were the very first person ever to ask what people were netting. We have a no peacocking rule where we don't allow people to come in and pound their chest on, all the deals that they're doing. Because frankly, there's usually someone in the room that is not necessarily bigger, but better at operations or frankly bigger, right? You weren't really worried about so much of the gross number. You always worried about the net number, which early on was different. It caught my attention, and I could tell early on that you were very systematic from the very first presentations that you did, which led to your next business venture. So the reason that I wanted you on the podcast is, number one, I wanted to make sure that we had you on to share your journey. Again, going back to my point earlier, still to this day, one of the most profitable operators that I know is always focused on the net, not so much the gross side. So I wanted to share that story. But moving forward with the pods, I've said this now in a couple. our goal is to get as many resources. This whole culture is built on go-giving, and I want to make sure that our viewers get as much value as they can from these pods moving forward. And you're going to be the first that actually has, a resource that, based upon the answers here today, we're going to create a resource for everyone that's struggling with mail. And to set this up, I can remember my very first day in CG 11 years ago, believe it or not, 11 years ago. I remember everyone in that room that was doing 200 plus transactions a year, their number one lead source was mail. Fast forward to today, 11 years later, and there's still a significant portion of, especially our premier and CEO levels, that their number one or number two, it's always one or two usually, lead source is direct mail. So we know it's tried and true. And there's obviously a roller coaster that comes with, like you were mentioning before. It may have dipped below 7x return or 6x return, but on the average out over the years is in that 6 to 7 range. But I'm starting to hear, especially from the newer investors, that person that's been in the business 3 to 5 years has done very well for themselves. But you're starting to hear, man, my return on spend or direct mail isn't working. So I wanted to have Jason on this pod to give some resources, real-time resources that he's utilizing right now that will offset the myth of direct mail is dead. Is that fair? Is that a good setup here, Jason, for that?
Sounds great.
All right, so we're speaking to the experienced real estate investors. That's super important that I want to make sure that we get this across for direct mail. So that's who we're speaking to. And we're speaking to that individual that says, it's not necessarily dead, but my return isn't what it used to be. Yeah. So Jason's got a few pointers here that he's going to go through. And I guess the best way for me to set this up is to ask you the proper questions in which I sent over to you. So last month alone, and this is, you shared this with me, so I know you're okay with me sharing it. You did 13 deals on just a 25K spend. Now, I've heard members and investors that I talk to on a weekly basis say that, hey, I'm lucky if I'm getting a couple deals a month now from direct mail. You did 13 last month. So what did you change, if anything, in your strategy? Let's start with that. Is there anything that you changed from your strategy from the previous months?
Yeah, there was. So
okay.
One of the things that Investor Machine members get is I'm the guinea pig, right? And I, in my Salt Lake market, am split testing everything. And I could talk for the whole rest of the podcast on all the things that I figured out that don't work on my dime, right? And I wish that most of the things that I tested worked. It's way easier, but I found a lot of stuff that didn't work. QR codes, super branded cards. We've changed up the way we're constantly tweaking the algorithm. Do we focus more on property attributes? Do we practice more on motivations? Each of these different things along the way. But we finally found, and we find little ones that work, then we find some bigger ones that work, and then we roll those out to the rest of the team. So first, I'll go over just briefly what I'm doing that's the same. So Investor Machine starts with the list. So we get every record in, and we're kind of our fundamental core is we do the stuff that everybody knows that works, but that's really, really hard, and that most people aren't willing to do to then have it work. So we start by scoring every different aspect of a property. So we take every record in a county and we look at every different aspect. So from what zip code is it in, to how big is it, to what motivations does the seller have, so on and so forth. We build an avatar, like a lookalike audience based off of who has sold to investors in this market in the past. So we look and say, okay, this is every single person who sold to an investor, and this is how those people scored across every different attribute along the way. So this many people sold to an investor in this zip code compared to how many were in here, so on and so forth. So we build that algorithm, and it says, based off of who sold in the past, this is who you should market to. Then, we put together the mail piece, etc. So the big thing from the list that we leveled up, we're constantly working on improving, with any type of AI type of thing, it's all about the data that you put in. So we know who sold to investors and we plugged it in, but I did a little extra work in my market and I figured out who's everyone. And this was actually inspired by a CG talk from Stuart Denyer, where he talked about the power of your business intelligence. Your business intelligence is one of your most valuable assets. It's the things you know because of your business that nobody else does. So I looked at all of my deals and I looked at all of my competitors' deals. And I trained our model on those. So we'd been training it on, hey, here's the wide swath of everyone that sold to an investor. But there's a slight difference between who sells to an investor and who responds to marketing to sell to a wholesaler and or flipper just like me. So we double dialed in the avatar into who sells to somebody just like me. We made some level ups and critiques to the actual creative as well. And those things combined, I mean, I average, my average cost per buy is about 5,000. But we took it down to under 2 with this, with these specific changes. That's the power of little tweaks and getting it a little bit better all along the way. Eventually you find the thing that's a home run. Did that make sense?
So if it's the biggest strategy that you updated, you're talking specific to the data and the information that you're inputting on getting to that next level of that data. You're using technology to get to that person is what you're saying.
Yeah. So we've had our model, our algorithm built for a long time that we're looking to see who sold to an investor. It's taking it from the wide swath of who sold to any investor to feeding it additional data on who's selling to people just like me, not who's selling through the MLS, not who's, anything else, who's selling to me and the other people just like me and what is their avatar.
So totally a really sniper approach compared to a shotgun approach is what I'm getting from you. You are really looking at not someone that is sold on retail, but someone specifically sold to a professional investor at some level.
Yeah, who most likely marketed to them. So it's the avatar of who responds to a postcard in addition to who sells to an investor. And the other part of that is, so we also, for our members that opt in, on our postcard, we put a phone number that passes through us and then goes to our members. So we see what we send and what works and everything else. So we also, along the way, are able to further learn month after month after month. Millions of postcards go out, all of the responses come back, and we get to learn and say, okay, based on what we set, who called, what closed, and what do we do this next month, and what do we do this next month?
Is this a trade secret, or is it possible to know how someone purchased or sold? Meaning that, how would I know if someone sold their home to an investor that marketed to them with direct mail or some type of marketing? How would I know that?
So, no, I mean, it's not hard to find. For us, we have every record in America that updates every month with who bought and who sold. And then we have our software set up to know what to look for in terms of, okay, these are the people that sold to an investor. So we're looking at that and then we're saying, okay, are these people that we also mailed and marketed to, and did they sell to our investor? And then we also work with our members to get feedback of these were the ones that I bought. But from being a service provider in CG2, you have to find ways to get that data other than just from your member, because if you're relying entirely on member provided data, you wind up not getting everything that you need. So that's where we get it from.
Questions.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's where we get it from. This data can be got direct from the county in terms of every month who buys and sells. You can set up alerts on Redfin to say, hey, give me an alert when this property sells. Like, hey, if you see a property and you want to know if it's going to sell, Redfin can send you an alert. There's all sorts of different ways to figure out when things sell.
So the first thing, again, I'm going to ask these from a perspective of as if I don't know any of this. So we get as much as we possibly can out of this. And the strategy that you're speaking to is who's most likely to sell to a real estate investor and the ones that respond specific to mail pieces. So you're really getting granular. And that's the biggest reason that you would attribute to your 13 deals last month on only a $25,000 spend.
Correct.
Love it. All right. So 2020, 2019, 2020, in that range, I started to see a lot more applications from younger investors. When I say younger, they may be young in the business, only 1 to 3 years in the business, or they may be younger in age. Kind of handful of both, actually. But there was an influx of those that were applying that their main source was cold calling and text messaging. Really, text messaging was the bigger of the two. Obviously, regulations have flip-flopped those and more cold calling. So I hear the thing of, oh, direct mail's dead. But I also hear that, hey, what I was doing in the past with texting and cold calling, that brought me 50 to 100 transactions a year. I'm no longer getting those. And so why is it that you're doing 13 deals with direct mail last month? And for those people that have made that switch, that why is direct mail working when cold calling and texting seem to be, they're not dead, because I hate when people say that this marketing source, this lead source is dead. It's not dead. It's only dead if it's illegal and you can no longer do it in every single market. So why is direct mail strategy, after all of these years, we talked about 11 years that I know people that the number one source is direct mail, why is it still working?
Yeah. So I actually think because of this exact reason, it's working even better. And by the way, I knew, like, when texting first came out, it was cool, it was exciting, but I knew it had, when you've done this as long as you and I have, like, the market gives and the market takes away. And every different season, there's a thing that the market's giving that it's going to give for that season that's going to go away. It wasn't that long ago, you could refinance a portfolio of rentals at 3.5% on a commercial loan that wasn't even tied to your credit. It was awesome that the market was giving that then. Now it's giving higher interest in a money market. Different times, different seasons, the market's giving different things. And I knew when that one came out, it was like, this is going to be awesome while the market gives it, but I want to make sure I don't put all of my eggs in this basket. And you may remember, you had me come present at CG Select, and that was my first few slides. I said, hey, if you are just a texter and a cold caller, 2 years from now, you're going to be an Amazon shipper, or you're going to be in a multi-level marketing company, or selling Bitcoin courses or something. And I know people from that room that have hit me up for almost every single one of those things since, because it was a very market of the moment thing. The cool thing is, all of those sellers that were responding to us through texting before, they still have to sell. Right? There's the same, you have the same pie of sellers, and you had this chunk of that pie that was selling through texting and cold calling. And by and large, of most of the people that I know, the volume, I agree, the channel's not dead, but if it was this, it's now this of total sellers that are moving in that way. Yeah, they had to go somewhere. And they're going to your marketing channels, PPC, SEO, TV, and then through realtors, networking, and relationships, etc. So if anything, I think it's a bigger opportunity in all of your marketing channels, because you don't have that swath that's being taken by the texting and cold calling.
Well, and just to add to that, Jason, being in this business long enough and having spent 11 years in advertising, let's face it. The majority of our avatar are people that are looking to sell, typically because they are downsizing, or they've inherited a home. So the avatar is usually older. They're going to trust someone that has built a local brand more so than they are a text message or a cold call today. Again, those things worked when they worked, and they will continue at some level to be used for follow-up. Some people, I'll have some people listening to this going, hey, cold calling is still my number one lead source. And it will be until it isn't.
Yes.
What I will say is that these things are tried and true. I've always known everyone in CG consistently has done one of three channels that has always consistently worked. Again, the return on ad spend may be less, but it's been tried and true since I've been associated with this organization. Direct mail, PPC, and television. Those are three main ones that I've known for. And then obviously referral channels, those are unpaid type of sources, but those are three main paid direct-to-seller inbound leads. I'm speaking specifically to the different types of channels. You spoke to the direct mail, what got you, that strategy that got you to 13 deals last month. If we're going a little bit deeper, most people, you know how it is. When you go to CG, they want to know, sometimes they don't ask the right question, they ask a very specific question though. And the very specific question you typically will get is, what list right now? What's the top 3 performing list right now? So I put that down because I know it's a question that would be answered. If we were doing this show live, that would be up on the chat right now. What are the 3 highest performing channel lists right now? So to appease the audience, what are those that you're seeing?
Yep. So the honest answer is, I'm going to give the crappy answer first, then I'll give a better answer. The crappy answer first is, it depends. And I know because I look at who sold to an investor in every market every quarter, right? And sometimes, like in some Midwest markets, you'll look at it and literally the hottest list for that quarter was an absentee. And it's like, that is the least sexy, lamest answer for the hottest list for this quarter. Like, you know, I'm not getting on a Facebook ad and be like, hey, secret, super crazy list you've never heard of, we're going to mail absentees for you. And then you'll have other markets where absentees are trash. Like, you know, Florida, it is all about death. Probate, affidavit of death, just people that died, but the property didn't necessarily, all of the different ways of going and getting probate are the ones that are super hot. You've got places where it's vacant. You've got places where it's tax delinquent. Like the list changes. But in terms of like, hey, Jason, give everybody the answer they're looking for, I will do this. First, it's going to be your hyper-stacked lists. So anything that's got multiple motivations going on, those are going to be your best lists. And especially if you can align it with an ideal avatar. If, you know, grandma's 80, she lives in the right zip code, she's lived there for 90 years, and you know, she's in a nursing home and everything else, that's going to be your ideal perfect best list. If you're just pulling one list across all of America that I'd say is probably best, it's still probates if you're working them right. Tax delinquents and vacants are also really solid lists. Evictions are great. Water shutoffs are great. Code violations are great in most markets. Typically, the harder it is to get, the better off it's going to be. And that's the other half that we didn't talk about what we do, is how we get those different. So how my list world started was, so when we had no virtual assistants at the company I worked at before. And when I started this company, I was like, oh, I want to mail the tax delinquents. And I got in Salt Lake County like a 50-page PDF that had to be converted into an Excel to be able to be mailed. And this was pre-AI and all sorts of cool tools that could do that. And I was working it through and I was like, dude, this is awful. I'm going to spend a week doing this. And then I heard on a podcast about these miraculous things called virtual assistants. And I was like, what is this thing? I need these. So that was the start of what has turned into hundreds of virtual assistants that have worked for me over the years. So we have an army of roughly 40 virtual assistants that get directly into every county, the recorder, the courthouse, all of the places that are really hard to go and get. And then we pull those motivations out one at a time. We're starting to do some with AI now where you program an AI to go in and do similar things. But even still, between recaptchas and how quickly things change and everything else, we still lean really, really heavily onto the one-at-a-time virtual assistant. Go find the probate, go find the heirs, go piece all of it together to ultimately say, boom, this is the person that we should go and do and mail. Those lists that are hard to get that I can't just go get from PropStream or Deal Machine or any of the other like national sources, those are the ones that are working the best for me because they're the least number of people that are reaching out to them.
So, again, the reason that I wanted to have Jason, just listen to that answer. I don't want to gloss over this. Investor Machine is just not direct mail for him. It started out that way, but he knew he had a viable product that friends and family asked him to, do it, direct mail for you service. And that answer, what you got there, and I don't want to gloss over it, is super important. The answer that he gave you, some of this is regional. Did you hear the answer about Florida and how it differed and why absentees and probate are, better list in this state versus other states? You have done direct mail. I think you have managed over $50 million in your career with Investor Machine in multiple states across United States. And one thing I will always say about you, you're one of the most honest people I know. And if there's a market that you've struggled with, you'll just say, hey, I've struggled. I haven't figured it out yet, and I will figure it out. And you share that with the future customer of yours. I think in this particular case, it's always important to ask the right question, and it's the right question specific to your region. Like if I'm in the Midwest, the top list for me that might be performing today might be different than what it is in the South or the West. So I think that's the best question to ask here if you're dealing with somebody that is going to do a done for you service. And, obviously shameless plug here for Jason. I mean, he does a great job. I would have that conversation with him. Have you worked with anybody specific to this particular market, and what have you seen in the past? Doesn't produce necessarily future results, but if you've worked with somebody, what the hiccups may be. The next question that usually I hear, Jason, is specific to, again, there's a better question to be asked, especially regionally. Also, it depends upon how much other creative marketing someone is doing. But I always get the question of which piece works better, the creative, the very branded piece or the ugly piece. I know how you're probably going to answer this, but how would you right now today in this market, this current market, summer of 2025, what would you say to someone on what piece works the best?
Awesome. So those, and you're getting it spot on. What are the top questions people ask? List and creative. The one other thing I would say that I didn't say before on list is any type of predictive modeling list based off of who sold to investors in the past with AI help is going to outperform anything else. So if you're just going and pulling an individual motivated list, it's not the same, again, as someone that's seeing, hey, what exactly is working now and where are we going and attacking with it? That is ultimately the thing that can't be beat. It's simple science. Who sold, who's going to sell in the future, what does that person look like, and who has the most data points they can look at to be able to successfully prove that this is who's going to sell next. In terms of principles of creative, so this is where my heart breaks a little bit, because this is where what I want to be true is not the same as what is true. If I was getting up on stage and wasn't the one doing this, I would stand up and say, we are professionals and we need to be the professionals, and you need to come in with super high standards, and you need to have a great brand, and you need to look like the real guys. And that's what everybody's going to love. In fact, I've got a example of one of those right here, which, by the way, again, I tested. Right here. I'll share my screen really quick.
So the keyword there being tested.
Yep. All of these things. Yep. Every single thing is tested, and it's measured from a standpoint of what was the ROI we got, what was the positive ROI, or what was the total number of responses, cost per response, cost per positive response. Look at your cost per appointment, cost per close, and then ultimately ROI, because the numbers will vary. Ones like this, your response rate will go through the toilet. They'll still perform. We're going to go.
And for those that are listening via audio, what Jason is sharing here. We'll make sure that it gets in the resource. We'll give you a URL to be able to find these answers that he's given to these questions for what's working right now, as well as this particular piece. Go ahead, Jason.
Yep. So these are the pieces that I would love to be able to say. See, this like matched the image that was on my website at the time. Very professional, very nice. These would be my dream. And I know, because I spent tens of thousands of dollars sending pieces like this. This is what I would love to tell you. Hey guys, send this. Facts are, it doesn't work nearly as well as a simple, straightforward, basic card. Another story time. So once upon a time, there was a real estate investor who owned a marketing company too, who put a lot of time, effort, and energy into creating the perfect creative. It had a picture of my team. I paid a creative writer to write every single word. I paid a graphic designer to look at it. And we thought of everything. We made sure it was authentic. We made sure, here we go, this is it. So we made sure it was all the same color. We super thought through every single word and studied all of it and sent it out. And it was going to be absolutely perfect. So one of the cool things that we do, and I'll share my screen again, is I think I mentioned this before. We're able to see response rates across every single card that we have sent out. So this right here is every different card that I've sent out and various response rates and what we've seen in terms of total response rate versus appointment percentage, positive response rate. And this card that I spent all of this time, effort, and energy doing and presented on in CG because I was so excited about and everything else, sat right here on my worst total performer of all the different cards that I had sent out.
So for those that are listening on the audio, please explain that to them. So this is a creative bar graph that's showing that
a whole bunch of different cards that we split tested, and my perfect card responded the worst of all of them. This one was the most expensive piece that I sent of all of them. So the second worst performer was the most expensive piece I'd sent of all of them. So that's a whole bunch of what didn't work. Now, what does work? What does work is more on the ugly side. And again, it's going to vary wildly regionally. You do have the check letter that works in a lot of places. We send the check letter, but I would say for our markets that we've tested, 1 out of 4 Investor Machine clients is sending the check letter. 3 out of 4 are sending more of your postcard type of pieces. Seems to be the major metros that perform the best with the check letter. We do oftentimes put values on our postcards. With that, the one plug I'll say to that is getting the value dialed in is so important. And following the same rules, the more effort that you plus mostly us put into dialing in that value and doing right, the better any of your check letter value type postcards are going to perform. But so what works? It's postcards. It's ugly. It's street views. It's simple doodle cards. That said, the other part of it, though, is you need to have it tied to an online world that is going to match what is in your print world. So you need to understand that they're going to take and move to the online world. And that's why on my cards that perform better, I do on a lot of them like to have a picture of the team, or I make sure I have my name and things like that. And you want to make sure that what they see on here looks good with your Google My Business. You want to make sure that you have a decent SEO for yourself, and you want to make sure that you have a PPC that is targeting your keywords. Even like there's an About Us page where they can see, okay, these are the people on the team. This is who I'm going to meet with and everything else. That's what I would say. Work.
Professional, verified. Let me ask one additional follow-up on that. You mentioned that earlier when we're talking about that list stacking, those that have multiple motivations. You didn't mention that in the creative. Have you seen or have any trends that let's say if an individual is their top motivation is a part of that card, do you see an increase of response rate because you have particularly addressed that pain point?
Absolutely. And I'm really glad that you asked about that. So that is one thing that we do through our automation. So this is one thing that we actually, I'll show you on these cards. This is one thing that we do really well here, is you'll notice here, see how we can help. In this house, we help with challenging tenants and fair offers. The reason is because this is an absentee property. On this side, we have absentee investors, LLCs, and other investors. This one is also an absentee property. On another one, the things that we help with will show a little different if it's a probate. It'll say, hey, we happen to specialize in helping people with probate. On another one that is has a bunch of liens or tax delinquent, it'll say, hey, we help with government liens and taxes. So in this regard, it's a balance that you want to float. Because we know the motivations that people have, we happen to specialize in every single motivation that seller happens to be going through. We happen to specialize in divorce situations. Hey, I just had a divorce. This is great. That said, if you take and tailor the whole card to the motivation, outside of probate's the one example of that, exception to that, because you're sending to the heirs, it's obvious that you know. I learned this early on with notice of defaults. If you call somebody and start off the call by saying, hey, you're in default, you're just going to argue with them for 10 minutes about whether or not they're in default. It's like, this is public information. This is 100% verifiable fact. I got your information from a source that's not wrong. You are in default. And they're like, I'm not in default. Don't argue with them whether or not they just got divorced or whether or not mom just died. Just coincidentally specialize in one of their things while also having the piece come across as random and happenstance. That improves our response rate significantly. They got a stack of postcards and it's like, oh, these guys specialize in firehouses. My house is a firehouse. This is great. I'm going to call them.
All good. Again, as you're saying this, all I can think about, Jason, is when people are saying, hey, direct mail is dead. And my first question always would be, what are you currently doing with your creative? What are you doing with your list? And the next question would be, and you can, thank you for sharing that. You can take that share off of the screen there. The next question, so it's usually threefold, right? It goes, who should I be mailing to? What type of piece is working the best? And then frequency. How much and how often? So what's that? If you see a mistake that investors are making today, especially those that are saying, hey, I'm not getting the return that I once did, what's that mistake on frequency and how much?
It's a great question. So to me, the success of a mail campaign is broken up into one of four main levers. The strongest one is the list, then it's the creative, then it's the budget, then it's the frequency, and like how you're allocating the budget. Those are the things that we can take and pull. And then another one would be like, how wide of a swath are you hitting? Are you hitting just the city, or are you going 2 hours out from there and everything else has an impact in this too? So in terms of most common mistake with frequency, 19 times out of 20, it's too little is what I see. Especially with the smaller, newer investor. And this isn't just a direct mail challenge. This is a challenge across all marketing channels. In fact, I was just, there's all sorts of different investor Facebook groups. And I just was looking in one that was talking about a PPL provider. And this guy was like, man, this PPL provider used to be doing great, and now I can't get them to work. And you're watching everybody chime in. And then again, it's a group of newer investors. And they're like, yeah, man, these guys suck. This has gotten so much worse now. And he's like, well, I really want it to go better. What do I do? And someone asks, and then they're talking about your appointments and doing this better and everything else. And then someone asks, what's your budget? And he's like, $900 a month. Right. And I just want to be buying so many more houses with this $900 a month. And I can't even get the, 1 or 2 houses a month that I'm looking for. And like 70 chats in, nobody anywhere mentioned the budget problem. And I was like, guys, this is just math. It is really easy. In a market, you have a cost per buy and you have a revenue per deal, right? And in most of your competitive markets across most of your channels, PPL, PPC, TV, direct mail, any of your scalable channel, in a less competitive market, you're going to be $3,000. In an LA competitive market, you're going to be 20, 25 grand. There's a number in there that your cost per deal is. And then there's a high end of what you're making. In those Midwest markets, you're making 20, and the LA markets, you're making 100. The numbers pan out to be that same 4 to 6x. So if your cost per buy is $5,000, and if you're spending $1,000 a month in a marketing channel, on average, you're going to buy a home once every 5 months. But what you're going to do is 3 months in, you're going to say, this crap doesn't work. I've lost $3,000 already, and I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. And I'm going to tell all my friends that fill in the blank marketing channel doesn't work. So, and I feel like direct mail is even worse at this than a lot of the other marketing channels. This you told me I'm honest, right? This is my hard sell on direct mail. Direct mail is a freight train. You do not get an equal ROI on your first mail that you do on your 10th mail. I've got another visual I can share if you want. This one actually comes from another CG member. This is Micah.
Interesting that as soon as you said what you said about the first month and down the line of that freight train, the first person I thought of was Micah.
Yeah. So, this is, I got this from his team. So, on a lot of your other marketing channels, within your first 30 days, like on TV or you run a PPC ad, you're getting basically 100% of the responses you're going to get in the first 30 days of that ad that got ran. On direct mail, you're getting half in the first month of people that saw that. Everything else is filtering after. So let me tell you where this is awesome. Anybody that sent a lot of direct mail has that story of the $100,000 deal you got from grandma, that you got a letter that she's like, I stuck your letter in my drawer from 2022 and I'm calling and I'm ready to sell now. Like, the mail has a really, really long tail and is the gift that keeps on giving. I think if I stopped mailing today, I would probably make another $1 million on mail just in everything that I'm going to make over the next couple of years of everything that I've sent. The bad news is it takes a minute to get it up and going and ramped up and everything else. Once you've got that train going, it keeps going, and it is by far the stablest, smoothest, because if you're not getting as many response on the shorter term stuff, you're getting some from earlier, it's great. But, in answer to frequency, it's, the answer is you're probably not sending enough. What is my ideal frequency? My ideal frequency on your most motivated lists, we're talking the stack stuff and the stuff that has a high likelihood to sell. I like to mail them every 30 days. And I've got people that I've been and then the next most motivated, I like to mail every 60 days. I have people that I've mailed every 30. And then the other thing that people ask all the time is like, well, how long do you mail them for? Till they tell me to stop, or they sell the house, or, basically something that level of extreme is when I will stop mailing them. So, there are probably people that have gotten 40 postcards or more from me along the way. But there's also a value in this target knows, like, this person is serious. They've been mailing me for a long, long, long time. And I can tell you a lot of those people are friends and family and people that I know. Anytime I see, I've sent enough mail at this point, I hear all the time anywhere, hey, you mail me. I got a lady that lives on my street that just told me at church 2 Sundays ago, I have the street view on there, and included on the street view it says, we got this picture from Google we haven't driven by. And she's like, you're lying on your postcard because I watch you drive by every day. You tell me you haven't driven by, I watch you drive by every day.
Well, there's so much strategy that goes behind that. And the whole reason that I wanted to do this pod with you is to share the type of strategies that are shared within the room. You mentioned the first 90 days. And for those that were just listening to the slide that he had up there, it broke down the percentages after in the first 30 days was 50%. And then from there on out was 8% and 11% of response rate that you get 120, 180 days plus. And it just had it broken down in like 5 different categories. But you said something very important. is that the people that just start out and they do it for 90 days, let's talk about a 90-day sequence specific that, you would use right now. If you were starting mailback, say you've done it in the past and didn't work, what strategy for a 90-day sequence would you use right now for a new investor that you were signing up?
Yep. So it's not going to be nearly as sexy as you may have been hoping for, but that's okay. I'm going to take the best list and I'm going to hit it on month 1 and I'm going to hit it on month 3. And my best list, I'm going to hit it 3 times, month 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to try to have that be about 40% of my budget, maybe as low as 25. Then the next best of the list, in order to get a little bit more breadth, I'm going to hit them on month 2, either 1 and 3, and then I'm going to hit the other ones on month 2 and 4. And for that long, if I've got a tested and proven creative that I know has worked in other places, I'm probably going to send the same creative over and over again. I'm not going to, again, the sexiest answer is, okay, so we're going to send them this thing, and then we're going to follow up with that, and we're going to follow up with that. Like, ultimately, the thing about mail is it's just a statistics and timing game. They're going to respond to the person that got them at the right time with something that caught their eye. And they are most likely not going to remember what somebody else sent them. I mean, I can think of one example, from my fairly early days. The lady was like, "You're not going to believe this. I was praying today that I would know what to do with this house. And your postcard came." And I was like, "This is a sign from God. This is obviously what I'm supposed to do. This is awesome." And I was like, "Great, happy to buy your house." And then, I talked to her 4 days later. She's like, "You're not going to believe this. The craziest thing happened. I got mailed from another one of your competitors. I got mailed from another one of your competitors. I got mailed from another one of your competitors." Yeah, it's, at what point is the reticular activating system attuned to, I'm looking for the person to sell? Who hits the person on that day with something that they'd be more likely to respond to? And we are playing in the microest of percentages. But that's my world. That's what I'm super passionate about is, okay, if I change from this creative to this creative, I can go from 0.5% to 0.55%. And if I hit this list instead of this list, I can get this little percent more. And then this zip code is this little percent more. You stack up all those percent mores, pretty soon you're getting 3, 4, 5x better return. But it's just finding who's most likely and hitting them the most frequently until the timing makes sense. And I mean, obviously there's a balance. You could hit them every day, but that's what we've found is kind of your ideal cadence with that.
Jason, I don't look for vanity. I'm looking for sanity. And when it comes to direct mail, it's tried and true. I tell people all the time, they say, "Well, what's working?" I go, all marketing in this industry works. It ultimately depends upon what type of return that you're ultimately looking for. So I don't want the sexy. I want the high performing. And the high performing is the answer that you gave there. And so now that we know, you're measuring things to know whether it's high performing or not. So an issue that 2019, 20, and 21 caused is that a lot of mistakes were covered up by the market. The market was the star, right? Yeah. And now I, as the investor, have to be the star. So if I am tracking metrics, which, by the way, most entrepreneurs are mavericks and those different personality types that you were talking about before, they're not measuring these things at the level that they need to. So we're talking to all investors that are serious real estate investors that are using direct mail. Right now, today, if you're a serious investor, what metrics should they be tracking to know whether that direct mail campaign is winning or losing?
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to start with less advanced and then more advanced. So least advanced, simplest. You want to track your cost per lead and your cost per positive lead. Because the thing with direct mail is if you just want a high cost per lead, I can send the check letter and or the street view, or I could send the third notice letter, which is just like third notice. And I can get you so many responses, but it's mostly just like blowing up your phone with hate. So good to know what the total responses are, but I'm most interested in what's my cost per real lead. Like this person called me to sell me a house, not just because they wanted to shoot me out.
Real lead equals they raise their hand and say, "I have a house to sell."
Yes, not, it typically includes less of the F word. Um, those
The fun.
That's right. Yes, those that are looking for fun instead of the screw you, don't mail me anymore. So cost per lead, and then from there I'm looking at what is my lead per appointment and or my cost per appointment. Then I'm looking at what's my appointment to close. Another way you could look at that is what was my cost per closing, and then ultimately the number that's going to matter the most is ROI. The hard part about everything after cost per lead is now you got multiple variables coming into play. How good a job did your lead manager do? How good a job did your acquisition manager do? How many dispo strategies do you have? Are you looking to buy at 40 cents on the dollar, or are you looking to buy at 70 cents on the dollar? All those numbers are going to play into it significantly, but ideally you want to have that as a control against your other marketing channels that may be working. So we actually built this into a really cool calculator that I'll give everybody as a give, and you'll see it up here on here. And I will try to be better at talking to those listening, because I agree that I never watch podcasts. I always listen to podcasts.
Well, I mean, that's there's a difference between doing a radio broadcast and a television broadcast. So you have to explain what you're actually showing on the radio side. In this particular case, the podcast side. That's why I was trying to do that earlier. So thank you for including.
I will include the listener. So So this is with hyphens. Direct-mail-ROAS-genius.com. Direct mail ROASgenius.com. This is our direct mail ROAS calculator. And in here, you can plug in what's your ad budget is going to be, how many mailers you're going to get. You got to key in how competitive your market is. And then based off of that, based on our numbers that we're getting, this isn't our optimistic numbers, this is what we're seeing in markets just like yours. How many leads do we think you're going to get? Then based off of that, now it's your variables. What degree do you answer the phone? If you answer the phone half the time, you're not going to get nearly the results as if you answer the phone all the time. How many leads to appointments do you typically get? What's your appointment to contract? And then what's your contract cancellation? What's your revenue per deal? We'll come in and tell you based off of that, this is what you think you're going to get for a return on ad spend. And then we've got all sorts of other pretty ways that we have this broken down underneath. So this is an actual tool that you can use. It's live, ready to go to help you break down how you get for a return on ad spend.
What's that URL again?
So it is direct-mail-ROAS-genius.com.
Awesome. I will make sure that gets included in the notes. And also we have a link to the link that I'm going to give them for the resource that we're going to provide at the end of this pod. Two quick last follow-ups here.
And I'll tell you just my numbers really quick.
Okay.
So
that was one of my two questions, so you can answer it with this as well. Like, what's a good return today, right? Not maybe 10 years ago. What's a good return on investment for the direct mail?
So you can get a lot of it comes down to budget and based on how much you want to spend, right? If you're looking to just mail a targeted list and you're in a bigger market, maybe not. And actually, even competitiveness doesn't matter, because typically you're going to have bigger disposition fees with that. But I mean, you can easily get 7, 8, 10x return on direct mail in small doses. But if you're looking to build like a scalable business, and if you're looking to do what your CG Premier and CG CEO members are doing, 4 to 6 is where the vast majority of us are hanging out. And I would say if you're hanging out in that 8 to 10 range, you're probably not spending enough. And the best thing you can do would be to spend more until you wind up hanging out in that 4 to 6x return range.
So remember this as you reach out or you're at our CG meetings and you're going, man, my direct mail stinks. I'm getting a 3x return. Just know that a 3x return is a really good return. It's not average it's just below average. So there's always ways and different strategies. A lot of them were given here today. how to get it to 4 to 6, which is where most people, again, at the CG Premier and CEO levels are operating in. If we're going to take one thing away from this, Jason, what is it that you would want people? There's a lot of resources that are going to be available to them today. If there was one thing that you wanted them to take away and implement, what would that be and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. I actually forgot of one other thing I wanted to share from the last question too.
Okay.
So this isn't my one thing, but from the last question, be careful on getting too caught up on one indicator that you're watching. So I talked about how cost per lead is the most valuable. I'm going to use a PPC example for me because this year I switched PPC vendors from one to another. My last PPC vendor cost per lead was $270, and my new PPC vendor cost per lead is $671. Just looking at that metric, I messed up. I made a terrible choice. I'm paying 3 times cost per lead. I should fire that vendor and moved on quick. That said, my last PPC vendor, my cost per close was $13,000, and now my cost per close is $5,000.
I knew where you were going with that.
Yes. It's the difference. So cost per lead is definitely an important thing. Watch it, but be careful. And even from an ROI standpoint, my ROI was negative on the last vendor because even the deals we were getting weren't very big. Now I'm at over a 5x return on that. And then the last nugget that I would give to be really careful with on direct mail especially is be very careful to not over scrub. Be careful you're not looking for the ambulance chaser when you could have bought, the person who needs an ambulance when there was 20 other convenient seeking sellers along the way that would have loved to sell to you along the way.
And the last piece of that was the one thing to implement. Obviously, we need to look at all of these things, but it can be overwhelming when trying to do all. So what is the one thing that you would suggest?
Yes, that is the ultimate Leon Barnes question. What is the 0 to 1? What's the one thing that I'm going to do? So
that's right.
I will say I will do it. It's hard because it depends on where you're at. What's the 0 to 1? I would say if it's me,
let's assume that it's someone that's been doing direct mail for a while. They've gone from a 6X down to a 2X, and they're looking for answers on how to get that back to at least a 4. Let's use that resource.
Okay. So I would say if there was only one thing I would do, it would be either utilize AI / model, machine learning type models. Figure out what you can do to see. Don't just go off of what's working nationally. Don't just go off of what your friend said is working. Don't just randomly call anybody. I would figure out what's working in your area, who's selling to in your area, what creatives are working in your area, and then go and do that, or find a vendor that can perform on that and delegate that out to them. But the old world of go pull a list from PropStream and mail whatever creative you heard on a podcast, that's what I started in, and it was awesome. But quarter after quarter after quarter, it's gotten harder and harder and harder. And that world just doesn't, we've talked a lot about some of the stuff that we're doing, and we're not the only ones. There's multiple just in CG vendors doing this. If you're trying to compete with the degree of intelligence that I have from the tens of millions of dollars sent out in marketing and everything that I learned back quarter after quarter from creatives to lists and everything else, the 7-figure software that I've built to go put all these things together, it's going to be really hard to compete by just going and pulling a list. Go find a way to work with somebody that's doing things at a higher, bigger conglomerate level. That would be my big takeaway.
Jason, there's so many takeaways here. This is a masterclass, and I failed to mention out of the gates in your introduction that this is what everyone has seen on YouTube or listened to is the reasons that you have multiple CG belts that you have taken home for these type of level of presentations and ability to share the information of, hey, if you want to do this on your own, here's what you need to do in order to go and do that. I really appreciate all the resources that you gave here today. And all
Yeah, my goal was to give everybody everything to go do this on your own.
clear.
Like,
Yeah.
and if you want to go duplicate my model, I probably gave you most of what you need to go do it. I tried to not hold back any secret sauces and just give you guys everything you need to take it and run with it. And if it makes more sense to have it done for you, now you know what we're going to do. One of Investor Machine's core values is transparency, and we will stay transparent through the whole process. You want to know what we're doing? We'll tell you.
So, Jason, we're going to put all the information on the pod for where they can find you. But from an audio standpoint, if people are listening to this and they just want to real quick search you up, what's the best way for them to reach out to have a consult with you to see if this is something that they want to have you do, or just to reach out to you in general? Because I know you're always very gracious with your time when you have it.
Yeah. So honestly, best place is go to theinvestormachine.com. You can learn a little bit more. You can book a strategy call, and we're super low pressure. It's very consultative, like, hey, this is even more on what we do. We'll even give more information on what we're seeing in your market and what might work. And it can even just be a one-on-one mail coaching call. On the best way to reach out to me on social, Instagram, I'm Jason R. Lewis 12. And then just Jason Lewis on Facebook are great ways to hit me up.
So many great resources to direct mail, especially if it's something that you're thinking about doing, something that you've been doing and not necessarily satisfied, or maybe you just want to tick it up from 5X to 6X. There's so many resources that will be provided for you. Those will all be found. We have a special URL just for you, Jason. It's at jasonlewis.thecgpodcast.com. jasonlewis.thecgpodcast.com. Once this pod is released, that URL will be live. And on that, you're going to find a resource, a PDF of all of these great strategies that all the questions that I asked, the answers that Jason gave, that you'll be able to take that resource because maybe you were driving or working out and you weren't able to write everything down. You can go and get that free document at jasonlewis.thecgpodcast.com. We'll also make sure that link that you shared earlier, Jason, I wasn't expecting that. Another bonus resource, direct-mail-roas-genius.com. Rather than people writing that down, we'll just make it available on that PDF as well. So that free resource will be available to you on that site. Jason, I can't thank you enough, man. This is, again, this is that high-level presentation that you see in the room and one that you usually win a belt for. I'll make sure that we get you an extra vote or two the next time you're up for a CG belt. Fair?
I love it. Awesome. I live for the belt.
All right, my friends. Thank you as always. I appreciate you joining me. And for those that would love to be in a room with members like Jason Lewis, please don't hesitate. Go and check out the collectivegenius.com. Actually, the better site is explorecg.com. There you will find all the information that you need on all the tiers. We'll meet you where you're at as a real estate investor. If we're a good fit for each other, we'll find out through a consult, which you need to obviously fill out an application first. And from there, we will see if this is a good fit for each other. And hopefully we'll get to see you in the room soon. Jason, again, thank you, my friend.
Can I share just one other quick thing?
Absolutely. Real quick.
Okay. I 100% would not be who I am or where I am today had I not made the choice 7 years ago to join CG. I've been teaching my kids about this. I've been talking to my wife all weekend about this. You know, there's a lot of principles that you know that are true, but certain things that like hit harder and ring truer at different times. You become like the people you spend time around. You know, if you're playing tennis and you're playing tennis against a person that's exactly as good as you are, the two of you are gonna, and it's just the two of you, you're gonna stay about the same. You can play tennis every day for a year, and at the end of the year, you're going to be a little bit better. But you go get in a room with people that are a little bit ahead of you. And this is one of my favorite parts of what you guys have changed at CG is the breakdown between, the different rooms. The ideal place to be is the bottom of the room or, the bottom half of a room, but not, I'll call it the difference between me and Stuart, who I talked about earlier, who's doing 20,000 deals a year.
Right.
I want to be in a room with people that are just a little bit ahead of me, just a little bit better. They're not smoking me in tennis, but they're definitely, but I'm consistently losing 6-4, 6-4. Yep. That is the perfect setup to move to the next level. It's funny. I've been holding out a little bit on moving up, but I told Leon at the start that I'm moving up to the next room because I've fully committed to this principle, and CG will change your life just for that. It runs incredibly well. They put so much time, effort, and energy. The people are amazing, but it's a law. You get in a room with people that are ahead of you, you're naturally going to become like those people. You almost can't not. It's like water flowing down a river. You think you're standing in one spot, and then pretty soon, a little while later, like, your kids that get some bad friends that, 6 months later, all of a sudden they've got all the same bad habits, and you don't know how it went from point A to point B. That exact same principle applies on the other way. Get in a room with the best people. Naturally, you're going to find yourself better in every way. I believe that with all my heart, because I've just experienced it over and over.
Wise words. We're lucky to have you. I always say, you find yourself in the room of 4 winners, and you've been a loser most of your life. You'll quickly turn that around and become a winner. You'll find that room has 5 winners really, really quickly, and you're one of them, my friend. Thank you so much again for all these nuggets, resources that you provided here today, and the kind words there at the end. We're very lucky to have you as a part of this community. Again, if you'd like to be a part of this community, listen to those wise words from Jason. Go to explorecg.com. Look forward to seeing you soon, and we will see you on the podcast next week.
New episodes every week. To learn more, visit explorecg.com, where real estate investors come to scale.